Welcome to Krystal Rowe Impact, a space dedicated to empowering you to be the change that your bloodline has been waiting for. Join me and together, let's inspire change. Kia ora whanau and welcome back. And I'm going to share with you today how my resilience actually started with my sacrifice. Many years ago, I was in a situation where I just conformed to keep the peace. I just thought that my resilience to my external life was just what it was, and there was sort of no way out. Until I realized, like, if I made a few sacrifices, everything could completely change. And so I did. I actually put my hand up and I said, enough is enough. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life anymore, but what I do know is I don't want it to be like this. And so I found myself in a woman's refuge with my 6 children. And one of the ladies actually said to me, these are the rules. You may not like them, but you have to follow them if you want to stay here. And I turned around to her and I said, I honestly do not know how to fix my life right now. So I'm going to look at these as guidelines. And if you know how to do your job right, I should get out of here and be able to start a new life. And that's exactly what I did. I started a life of sacrifice, and I started a life that was changing the trajectory for my children. The sacrifices that I took to get myself to the women's refuge were things like the judgment of others, what everybody would think of me for taking my children away from their father. How would they talk about me to others? I sacrificed my own worth and my own belief to have this perfect family and not to break up the mum and the dad. And I would sacrifice so much of my soul to actually be seen when I was never ever going to be seen in that situation. And I sacrificed myself to have the chance to have a different life for my children. And so a part of that journey was realizing that I had to put my old self down and everything that I had known myself to be, all the worthless thoughts that I had in my head and all the self-doubt and all my inabilities that I had believed to be true about myself, I had to literally put down and realize that if I just stopped this cycle right here, maybe, just maybe, there's something else that can actually become my life, that there could be something different than the life that I was living. And so when I arrived to the refuge and they spoke about these rules, I sort of felt like that they were like my earth angels. They were my guidance. They were the people that knew how to get me out of a situation that I didn't know how to get out of. Like the first couple of nights before we landed at this particular refuge was absolute hell. We had one night in a motel that was so dodgy as shit. Like it was so scary that I couldn't even sleep because there was things going on in the other rooms. The people barely gave us any food. And so it was a really, really heartbreaking moment for me to realize that I had put my children in this situation. But I also knew that there was help on the other side. And so I was able to sacrifice my, I know what to do, I know it all. I took off my stubbornness. I put my stubbornness aside or my pride aside, and I just said, you know what? I've had enough. Please help me. Help me save my children. And so I did. I went and they did help me. They showed me how to do a few different things with my children. They showed me how to understand myself and my situation, and that I was going to be okay if they let if I let them help me. So the moment I accepted help and the moment I realized I didn't know what I was doing and that it was going to be okay and to trust this process, everything else started to fall into place. There's one quote that I love, and it's make one right choice and the rest will follow. And it seemed to be the case for myself. So upon living in the refuge, they helped us with a series of events and structure. I realized after spending some time in the refuge that my resilience was starting to grow stronger to the external elements, to the negative feedback that was coming my way, or to the negative comments and situations that were being created around me being in the refuge. And when I actually realized that I was stronger and more capable of overcoming this situation, I realized that I had been resilient the whole time. I just didn't explore what that looked like. And so once I actually started to make different moves and things would come up, I'm like, oh, I've been through worse, or I've experienced something far worse than this. So this is easy. And then once I started to actually analyze my situations and my experiences that I was finding myself into, I was like, I'm actually quite good with this situation. And then I could kind of relate to my grandmother and her sacrifice and her resilience being a migrant to New Zealand. So I realized that my resilience actually stemmed from a long line of women that were so resilient to the environment around them. And that gave me so much courage, and it empowered me to really stand into my truth and stand into my power and know that whatever I was faced with, that I would be able to overcome. So if we just understood like the sacrifice and the resilience that the generations before us had, then we would have so much more understanding of like the sacrifice that they made. Like then we would respect where we've actually come from a lot more. When I realized the sacrifices that my great-grandmother and my grandparents and my father had to make to actually move to New Zealand from Niue, I actually started to have a whole new profound level of respect for them. In the beginning, all I knew of my culture and my grandparents was just this really shut off kind of persona. They didn't want to talk about culture. They didn't want to talk about past or anything like that. And there was no interaction around what they overcome or anything like that. It was just this already perfect world. So when I started to go through my own experiences and I got familiar with what it was like to be resilient to something, I actually started to understand that, hold on a minute, my dad must have had to go through something. His parents must have had to go through something. Where is this resilience coming from? And then it took me back to my great-grandmother, and I realized the resilience that she had as a woman to be living in a city that she was so foreign to. And I realized that my strength actually came from within my bloodline. And I actually appreciated the sacrifices that they made. And I believe that if our generation now could understand the sacrifice, if our children understood the sacrifices that we make as parents every day to give them a better future, if we understand the sacrifices our parents and their parents made for us to be here right now living, it will just change your whole mindset. Imagine understanding the pain and the sacrifice that your great-grandmother went through just to raise your grandmother. If you understood everything that she went through, maybe you'd have a little bit more respect for it, maybe a bit of gratitude. And then when we operate from a place of gratitude, our whole world changes. Imagine the top 5 powerful thoughts of your heritage, of your grandparents, of your parents. Imagine thinking 5 amazing things about them. Imagine having respect for their journey. Imagine understanding their journey a little bit more. We would be so much more grateful. We would be so much more appreciative. And we would actually understand that their resilience and their sacrifice has given us the life that we have today. It has given us the opportunity for us to actually create any type of future for ourselves and our children. We actually live in an amazing world where we're limitless if we only stop limiting ourselves. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on all social media platforms, and we will see you in the next episode.